Сайн байцгаана уу хүн үзэгчтэй. Өнөөдөр манай де факто нэвтрүүлгийн зочноор Азийн сангийн ерөнхийлөгч ноён Дэйвид Арнолд оролцож байна. Азийн сан бол Монгол улсын хөгжил дэвшил, ардчил, зах зээлийн нөхцөл шилжихэд томоохон үр гүйцэтгэсэн байгууллага үүнийг төлөөлж байгааг хүнтэй уулзж байгаадаа баяртай байна.
Дэйвид Арнолд, Азийн сангийн ерөнхийлөгч Дэйвид Арнолд, Аз номхон далайн ойрох дорнодын улс орнуудад олон улсын хөгжил, засаглалын чиглэлээр олон жил ажилласан туршлагатай. Сан Франциско, Вашингтон хот болон Азийн 17 улс дахь Азийн сангийн үйл ажиллагааг удирддаг. 2011 оны 1-р сараас хойш Азийн сангийн ерөнхийлөгчөөр ажиллаж байна. Азийн санд нэгдэхээс өмнө Каир хот дахь Америкийн их сургуульд 7 жил ажилласан. Тус сургуулийн захирлаар ажиллаж байх хугацаанд $400 сая өртөгтэй шинэ оюутны хотгон бариулсан. Мичиганы их сургуульд бакалаврын зэрэг, Мичиган мужийн их сургуульд нийтийн захиргааны мастер зэрэг хамгаалсан. 2001 онд Мичиган мужийн их сургуулийн хүндэт доктор болсон.
Good evening.
Welcome. Happy to be here.
I understand the Asia Foundation has held board meeting in Mongolia.
Yes, our board has met here for the past 3 days, and this is an opportunity for members of the board to get a first-hand sense and understanding of the work that our office here in Mongolia has been doing, to meet with our partners, to meet with representatives from government, from civil society, from the private sector, and really gain a much broader sense of the work of the foundation here than what we can obtain by having our meetings simply in San Francisco or in Washington or in New York, but to come to the country to really get a very direct impression of the impact that the foundation's having is very, very important in terms of the board's ability to feel connected to the work of the foundation.
Please tell my audience what is the Asia Foundation briefly.
Well, the Asia Foundation is an organization that was created almost 60 years ago with the mission of really working to strengthen democratic institutions throughout Asia and to promote and encourage economic reform and development. We have programs now in 17 countries across the region, working in a variety of different areas, major emphasis on governance and law, work on women's empowerment, women's rights, economic reform and development, a growing program in the area of environment and environmental resource management, and finally a thrust on regional cooperation, really working to build and strengthen relations between countries within Asia, and particularly to working to address common issues that cut across borders.
You know, Asia Foundation is 20 years almost next year in Mongolia. In short, what you would say, what is the major achievements you think on your foundation side as a head of the organization you would think about Asia Foundation in Mongolia?
Well, as we reflect back on the history of the foundation's work here, which began in 1990, the Asia Foundation was one of the first international non-government organizations to be invited to begin working here. And the work has progressed over the years in response to the changing dynamics and needs of Mongolia's own reform efforts. But in the early stages, a major effort and concentration was just working to support and assist the leaders of the reform movement in terms of the shaping of a constitution, putting in place basic democratic structures and institutions, working to address some of the social issues on women's empowerment. So over the years, the agenda has changed and evolved, but in many respects, we continue today to be working on some of the critical issues and challenges: anti-corruption, environmental protection, women's rights and women's opportunities, and regional cooperation, as I mentioned before, because Mongolia occupies a very special and somewhat challenging space in terms of its neighbors and needs and the kinds of positive, supportive relationships that It's beginning to develop with other countries, not just in Asia, but in Central Asia and Europe as well.
Well, I would like to come after to the regional cooperation opportunities and the values we can somehow share with our region. Before going that, just I want to share with you early 90s when Mongolia just trying to change the old system, and we were not yet member of World Bank, IMF, and as you said, then you were the first organization to come out this scale. And then was Mr. also Severin House, gentleman who was a local rep. And it played an important role in our constitution drafting and making sure that this had reflected the best achievements of constitutions all around the world. So I think on behalf of our Mongolians, people who was a part of that revolution, we would like to thank your organization for this wonderful contribution you made.
Well, thank you. I think it's important for me to emphasize that we were not involved in the drafting of the Constitution. There was a committee of leaders and parliamentarians from Mongolia that were really in the driver's seat. Our aim was really simply to provide additional expertise and to bring outstanding international scholars to make them available as resource people.
That's exactly what I mean, which otherwise we could not obtain anyway.
But the aim is really to provide information and access to different models and then leave it to the wisdom of the Mongolian leaders to determine what makes the most sense and will work best for Mongolia.
Mr. Arnold, you, before joining Asia Foundation, you have been working in Egypt for quite some time.
Yes.
And probably there is, to me, there's a certain parallel.
Mm-hmm.
What the Arabic countries trying to do today, in certain extent, and in a major depth, I would say, we did 20 years ago.
Right.
So how you describe what was going, I mean, a year before to just before and after change of government in Egypt?
Right. Well, I think if you look at the Arab world as it was 18 months ago, 2 years ago, many people were arguing that it was a region that somehow was immune to the pressures and the forces of democratization and change. And the Arab Spring really proved that that was a mistaken idea, and that indeed there is as much universal appeal to the powerful principles of freedom and democracy in the Arab world as existed in Central and Eastern Europe and here in Mongolia 20 years ago. So I would agree with you. I think there are remarkable parallels between the experience of the Arab Spring that's taking place in many countries of the Arab world today and the transition to democracy that took place here in Mongolia 20 years ago.
You were head of American University in Cairo, right?
I was.
And I understand ex-President Mubarak's family were there studying as well. And what was the mission of what is the mission of the American University in general?
Mm-hmm.
And what is the achievement you made in Cairo?
Right. Well, the American University in Cairo is an old institution. It was established back in 1919, so it is, has been a part of Egypt's history really from the early revolutionary days up through the present. And it also has adapted and adjusted to the changing needs and dynamics of Egypt over the years. It's the foundation of the university program was a strong undergraduate liberal arts education. There was a major emphasis to ensure that people were not just well-trained technically, but that they had the broad-based general education that is associated with what in the U.S. is the liberal arts tradition. But in addition, the university over the years added programs in science and engineering, in business and management, in information technology, and more recently in specialized fields like journalism and mass communications and public affairs. So
before or after this spring?
Oh, these predated the Arab Spring. So my years at the university were really associated with actually building a new campus to accommodate these new programs and the expansion of the enrollment, and helping to position the university to become kind of a leading research and professional graduate program, as well as a strong liberal arts undergraduate institution.
Egypt, Cairo has one of the best, at least had the best library of Arabic world. Cairo University, and a huge library which was partly damaged during the appraisal. Had something happened to the camp or not?
There was damage to some of the early editions of the description of Egypt that was from Napoleon's time. That was unfortunate, and I think unintentional consequence of some of the rioting that was taking place in Tahrir Square and the surrounding areas of downtown Cairo. But you're correct. I think the historic site of learning in Egypt was the Bibliothèque in Alexandria, which goes back many centuries, and which was renowned for collecting and making available, at that time not books but scrolls and information and knowledge from across the Mediterranean and throughout the Middle East region. And that tradition's continued. I'm really pleased to say that the Bibliothèque Alexandrina has been rebuilt. It's a spectacular facility. And of course, the oldest university in the world is the Al-Azhar, which was a center of Islamic scholarship.
It's older than Cambridge and Oxford?
It predated actually Bologna, which was the first European university. So Al-Azhar gets the prize for having been around longer than any of the Western universities.
Wow. And in the sense, Egypt, Cairo was a sort of a big center of Arabic world civilization. The first opera house, then Puccini, Verdi came and then made. Did you, when you made this very expensive campus, $400 million campus, and this state of art, everything in combination, what you were feeling, because you were doing such a modern achievements of science and technology into the heritage of the world, humankind?
Well, we worked with a team of architects that really worked to make sure that we were capturing the architectural traditions as well as the contemporary requirements of a university in Egypt. So we had a team that included Egyptian architects. One of our architects was a Mexican architect who had spent a lot of time studying Moroccan architecture.
Wow.
And so we had an international team of six different architects that worked as a team to develop the plans and designs for the university. And I think it did, people that have had an opportunity to visit the new AUC campus really have felt that it fits very comfortably and feels at home in Egypt, in the Middle East, and yet it is clearly a campus that is designed to accommodate a world-class university.
And you were students from other Arabic countries?
We had students from about 100 different nationalities. We had about 6,000 students, and they came from 100 different nationalities. More than 80% of the students were Egyptian, and we had students from Africa, from different parts of Asia, from Western Europe, and from the US. So it was an internationally diverse student body and a diverse faculty as well.
If any of them are running for election there now, these days?
There have been some who have stood for seats in the parliament. I think the one thing about the American University in Cairo is it had people of all different political backgrounds and persuasions that were part of the university community, ranging from the Muslim Brotherhood to members of the then ruling party, to many of the democratic reformers were AUC alumni, and so it's very much integrated into the political life of Egypt and the region.
Okay, let's back to Mongolia, to our project, and I should tell you that The Asia Foundation office in Ulaanbaatar is very well known. You have very wonderful, talented Mongolians working there, good leadership on the top, and particularly the program enabling talented young girls coming from poor families obtaining a scholarship and studying at the best 2 universities in the country, and you are doing it with Zoriksan. How do you see today your project, and how you see the future of the project?
Right.
Шагдарч байна татцэг гэдэг. Одоо шилжлэх ухааны технологийн сургуульд нийгмийн технологийн сургуулийн чөлөө цагаараа гэвэл одоо ер нь л чөлөө цаг болтол ер нь би яг ном унших туфтаа байхгүй. Янз бүрийн ном уншихаар хүнд илүү сэтгэлгээнд илүү хөгжөө тийм илүү ухаалаг болов. Манайх бол яг ам бүрэл зургуулаа гэж явдаг. Одоо би их сургуульд ороод мэдлэл бүдэлт хөдөлтөй болсон. Тэгээд ганцхан ажил хийж буюу мөнгө авч өнгөл аав тэгээд 7 хүнийг манай бэрэгч бас ягаа бэрэгчийн хүүхэд мөн гэдэг олон нийтж тэгээд хүндрэлтэйгээ манай аав бол ганц төр авдаг. Тэтгэврэн тэгэл зээллэгээрээ гэртээ янз бүрийн авах ч юм уу эсвэл зуны хитэн цараад гэртээ янз бүрийн мал өөртөө хэрэгцээг л хангадаг. Гүнээрээ сэтгэл хөдлөөд зүгээр хаа хамаагүй те бүр төв алгасаад гэх юм уу Монголын дээр бүр надыг энгийн нэгэн те хүүхдүүдэд туслаад төлбөр мөнгөлөөд чинь ирээдүйн одоо жишээ нь мөнгөд бол чадаагүй хүүхдээс нь бол их сургуульд орохгүй үдэд ямар ч амьдрах байсан мөлий те тэр хүүхдийн ирээдүйг цаашлаа тэр хүүхдийн ирээдүйн бүрлж байгаа тэр бүх зүйл нь өөрчилж өгч байгаа ирээдүйг нь өөрчилж өгч байгаа шиг тэгж баяртай.
I think if you look at the history of the foundation, the things that we do that really make a difference are really in 2 areas. One is helping to encourage and build and develop institutions, organizations, structures, and institutional mechanisms that will have a sustained impact over time. And we've done that in countries as diverse as Korea and Japan in the 1950s
early time,
1960s, up to working in brand new countries like East Timor today. I think in Mongolia as well, you see the impact and influence of the Foundation's program in terms of the development of the institutions of self-government and democratic government. The second area is really in terms of investing in people and seeing the transformation that's possible as you provide access to information and educational opportunities for talented and motivated individuals to move into important leadership positions. We're very much committed to making sure that those opportunities are available to women and to people from disadvantaged communities, as well as to the elite. I think the program that you've mentioned, which is a scholarship program for young women to study at 2 of Mongolia's top universities and to pursue degrees in science, is a great example of really using a little bit of financial help to unlock the human potential that exists in these young women. And they're absolutely highly motivated, very, very inspiring individuals, and I have no doubt that they're going to change the face of Mongolian science and engineering once they graduate.
Well, that's our hope, and in our tertiary education institutions, we have almost 70% of it is girls studying rather than boys. The level has become a little bit lower, but still dominant, and I think 20 years from now we have all our bosses women, probably including your graduates.
It's interesting to note that I think more than 20 of the 25 staff members of the Asia Foundation office here in Mongolia are women, and they're very, very impressive professionals, including our country representative, who is someone who is, I think, doing a superb job here.
Melanie, yes.
Yes.
In Mongolia also we have been Asia Foundation is playing an important role in making public governance transparent, less corruption. And you have met our president recently.
We met him this morning.
This morning. And what is your take on the current level of that situation in this country?
Well, one of the things that the Asia Foundation has done here in Mongolia is to undertake regular surveys of the people to get their sense of the state of corruption. And I have to say that one of the encouraging facts that we've discovered is that at the household level, the personal direct experience with corruption has been on the decrease over the past several years. And I think that's a very important and very positive trend. We had an opportunity during our visit here to meet with the officials who make up the Independent Authority on Anti-Corruption, and spoke with them about the multifaceted, comprehensive approach and integrated approach that's needed in order to tackle issues and problems of corruption. And it's it's not just the investigation and finding guilty officials, but it's really changing a culture and
in particular just before election.
Well, timing is everything, but this is something that requires a comprehensive long-term approach. It's about education, it's about public transparency and disclosure of income and assets by officials. It's putting in place effective enforcement mechanisms. So I'm impressed with, the Independent Authority is only 5 years old. It's still a relatively new institution. But the growth in terms of the caseload, the creation of innovative mechanisms like the hotline for citizens to report examples of corruption, these to me signify a real official governmental commitment to trying to tackle the issues and problems of corruption.
Out of this 5 years, they become active only for last few months, unfortunately. And I still believe as a citizen, as an independent, if I may say, journalist, they have a lot of things to do. And they have what the recent development, they started to do that, they should do until the end. And because we have a mass of corruption still, we have a lot of things to do with Ulaanbaatar city, speculations, there's a lot mess to clean up, and I hope your projects will continue in that regard.
This is an area of focus not only here in Mongolia, but many of our country offices are working to promote transparent, accountable governance, because ultimately it's only by shedding light that you're able to address the problems of corruption.
Have you noticed that in poorer countries or in transition economies, somehow more and more people from election to election want to run for public offices? Why is that so?
Well, and they're spending a lot of money to run.
Exactly.
In many cases.
Yes.
So
in this country, $1 million minimum now.
It begs the question of what's the return on the investment.
Yes.
So, no, this is a common issue and problem in many of the countries in which we work. And as I say, I think the best solutions are a comprehensive approach, trying to encourage and require disclosure and public accountability, making information about procurement public so that people know what is being put up for bid and have access to information.
Whatever government buys, let it public.
That's
announce,
right.
Yes.
That's right. So I think there are tools and mechanisms, and I'm impressed with the effort here to really try and use all of the tools and mechanisms that are available to combat this problem, which is a serious problem.
But still, for better efficiency, better result, we have to go a lot. And I just want to make sure that your foundation still keeps going on working with that.
This will be a continuing focus of our work.
In particular with the knowledge infusion from other experiences, other cases, other countries, And vice versa, of
Well,
course.
we actually were able to support a group of judges from Mongolia to visit Singapore and to visit Hong Kong to look at how the judiciary is organized to deal with corruption cases in those countries. So, and similarly, we're actually able to bring people from other Asian countries
That's
to
wonderful.
look at the experience here in Mongolia.
Would you please tell us a little bit about your environmental program in Mongolia?
Well, I think Mongolia, as you know, is facing an enormous opportunity, but also an enormous set of challenges with the development of the natural resource industries and the extractive industries here. There is an opportunity to do this the right way, which is to really promote responsible mining and natural resource management. And I think the work that the Asia Foundation is not so much on the technical aspects of environment, but really how do you get the community to participate in making decisions about development and environment issues, the trade-offs, how do you create mechanisms that empower communities to monitor environmental quality. So we've worked with some pioneering techniques on water quality monitoring, for example, that allow villagers to collect water samples and to be able to test and determine whether there's a problem in terms of pollution as an early warning system in terms of environmental management. We're now working, and as I mentioned, to try and get all of the stakeholders involved in issues related to environment and development at the community level to have informed and open discussion about how do you, yes, move ahead in terms of the economic opportunities that mining and other natural resource efforts represent, but ensure that environmental considerations are taken into account. So we work more on what I would characterize as the environmental governance dimensions of environment rather than on conservation necessarily or pollution, the technical aspects of pollution control.
So these are somehow, well, not very tangible, but somehow initiating some very big things like the quality control of water, and you will continue these projects, right?
We have a long-term commitment to Mongolia. We are proud of the fact that we've been part of the recent history of the democratic opening up and reform process. We're excited about the opportunities that Mongolia faces as it undergoes dramatic economic growth and economic development. But as I said, with that growth and that development come a whole new set of challenges and issues and problems. And we feel that we have an important and helpful role to play and look forward to continuing to be partners with Mongolian institutions, both government, civil society, as well as private sector, as Mongolia looks to the future.
You were talking about the regional cooperation. We have today certain problems, we solve it as much as we can and we try to do it. And probably what we do is in a way for other countries which is start doing that, somehow there's a lot of things to share. Please tell us about the cooperation.
I think one of the things that has been very interesting for us has been the Mongolia's leadership in the community of democracies. And as we met with President Elbegdorj this morning, he was describing some of the activities and priorities that Mongolia has put at the top of the agenda for upcoming meetings and gatherings of the nations that are part of the community of democracies. And I think Mongolia really has a lot to share and a lot to offer, but also to gain the support and kind of encouragement from other democratic countries and to be in a position to benefit and learn from their experience and to have a sense of solidarity with other nations that are trying to grapple with some of the same issues and challenges is very important as Mongolia takes on the next complicated phase in terms of its own reform process.
What is, you said in this transition, what is the most important achievements things we should complete from now on?
Well, I think that many of the reforms and changes that have been introduced here, while they're moving in extremely positive directions and are well conceived and well thought out, democratic institutions don't take root overnight.
Certainly.
You need to gain experience in terms of holding elections, of ensuring consistent rule of law across a variety of different areas, whether economic or in terms of public law, administrative law. The process of trying to ensure access to justice for everyone, whether that's through the court systems or through alternative informal dispute mechanisms. There's a wide range of what I would characterize as second or third generation issues or challenges that any country that has embarked on the kind of democratic reform path that Mongolia has chosen will encounter as their experience develops. Our aim, as I said, is to be partners and to accompany Mongolia and our friends and colleagues here so that as new challenges emerge, there's the opportunity to look at the experience that has been gained in other Asian settings in the West and really to draw whatever insights or lessons would make the most sense in the Mongolian context.
These values you just described can be achieved based on a very sound economy. And that sound economy or activities of every Mongolians to be supported in the right way, I think from the revenue of mining. That's the challenge today of this country. Mm-hmm. And yet the revenues from mining is not very much effectively distributed. Mainly it goes as a cash for the last 4 or 5 years. Mm-hmm. And it was a huge problem in the economy. How do you see that?
Well, I think the conversations that we've had with leaders here, including the president, have really acknowledged and recognized the risks associated with becoming too heavily dependent on a single industry as the source of economic prosperity and development. And I have the impression that there is a shared understanding of the importance of investing in infrastructure, of putting in place the kind of enabling environment that will allow small and medium enterprises to develop, so that it's not just reinvesting in the single industry, but really using the resources that the mining sector can generate to make strategic investments in other areas that will be vitally important in terms of Mongolia's long-term economic future.
All right, my sort of last take on the region is we are in between two countries, okay, of very not mature democracy. One country is controlled by one political party, the other country is controlled by two persons, And within these circumstances, the values we have here in this country, how do you see from U.S. Foreign policy view?
Well, I think the U.S. has been a great supporter of Mongolia right from the very beginning, and Mongolia continues to be seen, I think, as a wonderful example of a country that has embarked on a path of democratic reform and economic reform. And in many ways, I think the term third neighbor is an appropriate term, because I think people in the United States are really rooting for Mongolia to succeed, and they want to see it succeed as an example of what an emerging democracy can achieve, even in a difficult neighborhood such as the one that Mongolia lives in.
Okay. About yourself, tell us about yourself, family.
Well, I've been very fortunate in terms of my life and my career and my opportunities. I have had an opportunity to travel and to live in different cultures around the world and to share that experience with my family. My wife is a teacher, an early childhood educator and specialist, and we have 3 daughters who had the wonderful experience of spending a good part of their childhood living in India when we were with the Ford Foundation in New Delhi and traveling in several countries throughout South Asia. So we had a family experience of living in Asia and connecting with Asian culture and with wonderful friends and colleagues that we've met during my years in India, and then to have a similar kind of experience a little bit later, more recently in Egypt. So our family is bicultural, multicultural. My wife and I very much enjoy the opportunity to engage and interact with people from different cultures. We feel very much at home in Asia, and we are at a point now where we're in the fortunate position to be grandparents, and so we're experiencing a whole new chapter in our lives, as we now, our 3 daughters have produced 7 grandchildren in recent years. So we're at a different chapter and very much enjoying this phase of our lives.
So you are a very happy grandfather as well.
I am a proud grandfather.
Where do you live now?
We live in San Francisco, which is the headquarters of the Asia Foundation. And
you have 2 offices.
We have an office in San Francisco and another office in Washington, D.C., small office in Washington, but the main headquarters is in San Francisco.
And you're working in the whole region, 17 countries.
17 different countries. And I have now visited 14 out of the 17, and I hope to make it to the 3 that I have not visited before the end of this year.
It's quite traveling.
It's a lot of time on the road.
Time difference.
Well, but the opportunity to actually, as I said earlier, to see the programs, to meet the staff, to engage and interact with the partners of the foundation is what this is where the real work of the Asia Foundation takes place. It's not taking place in San Francisco or Washington, it's taking place here in Asia.
What you do as a foundation, changing these countries into, helping the countries to change into better value based on democracy, market economy. Hopefully it works now in Mongolia. Of course we have ups and downs. I believe we'll solve with the great effort and inspiration of people like you.
Well, for me it's been a real privilege, and I've thoroughly enjoyed my visit here, and I hope that I will have opportunities to come back many times in the future.
Thank you, Mr. Arnold.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Nice talking with you.
Thank you. За баярлалаа хүндэтгэгчдээ өнөөдөр манай нэвтрүүлгийн зочноор Азийн сангийн Ерөнхийлөгч Дэйвид Арнолд оролцлоо. Баярлалаа.